Welcome back to another Wednesday on the Pagan Perspective. I'm your Wednesday host, Yeka, and this week we are talking about modern cosmology and astrobiology. So, the question as written is, does modern cosmology, astrobiology, physics, etc., influence your beliefs or practices as a pagan? So, absolutely. These are all areas which are passions of mine. And they are areas that give perspective. So cosmology is talking about what is the universe. It is really the study of the universe, what makes the universe, what are the processes which created it and continue to. So what was our past, what is present now, and where are we going? Astrobiology, and this is amazing. This is a field that I absolutely love personally. Astrobiology, you break that word apart. Biology is the study of living, and astro means star. So it is the study of life out there in the stars. This is the idea of, this is the very real science. We're not talking little green men in saucers and crop circles. We're saying, okay, the universe is vast. Let's just back up for a little bit on this and say, okay, so you look out on a dark night sky and so you've got perfect vision or corrected for, with no light pollution, we should be able to see about 3,000 stars, okay? But that is a tiny portion of the stars in our galaxy. The Milky Way has several hundred billion stars. And the Milky Way is one of at least several hundred billion galaxies, each with their own billions of stars. Now, the vast majority of those stars that you see, and the vast majority of stars we believe in general, have planets. Not only do they have planets, but they probably have multiple planets. The numbers of planets far, far outweigh, or outnumber, excuse me, not outweigh, but outnumber, because the mass between a star and a planet is very different, but outnumber the number of stars hugely. Now, the idea that this little rocky, mostly molten, tiny 4.5 billion year old planet could be the only one that's got life is kind of crazy. So astrobiology works with the assumption that, hey, there's got to be other life out there. We can't be the only life. So let's study life as we know it here. Because right now, life on Earth, or life that's part of Earth, is the only life that we know of. It's the only reference we have. So life could be really, really different other places, but at least we know that it could work the way that it works here. So we study life here. And not only do we study the life that we're familiar with, this strange, tiny surface layer, but we go all over and all throughout the planet and start learning about, okay, let's go down to the hydrothermal vents, okay? Let's look at how bizarrely different life is there. Let's go to the salt flats. Let's go up in the atmosphere. Let's go to the ice sheets in Antarctica. Let's look at all of the different kinds of conditions for life. Let's study the life there. Let's try and figure out, how did life start? What's different about it? What does it have in common? What's it need? Now we can find for Earth, there are some commonalities we can find, and we go, okay, so those are starting points for us to search for life elsewhere. And right now we're looking at our nearest neighbors. We're going, okay, Mars. Well, Mars is a great starting place, right? Because Mars used to be so, and still is actually so Earth-like, but especially when we go back to the Noachian period, in which we had a warm, wet world with essentially the same ingredients that we have here on Earth in this, anyways. So we go and we look at different environments within our own system. There are so many candidates. We can go Mars, Europa, Enceladus. We could say Titan, Pluto, and strangely, we just added Venus back to the list with the PH3 discovery. So we're looking out there. Now, I said planets, and here's an assumption. This is a very human-centric way of looking at things. We're assuming that life's got to be on planets because, well, and then we say that there are billions and trillions of planets out there. Of course, we've only confirmed in the 4,000 some, but we are quite certain there are more than that. But why would life have to be limited to a planet? So anyways, I guess this is going on a tangent. This is a topic that I really, really love. But bringing it back to the perspective, what perspective does that help me have as a pagan? Well, as a pagan, I'm all about my connection with nature. I'm about understanding that I am part of nature and using ritual and using practice to improve the quality of my life and that of my families. So the connecting in with the incredible wonders of what we're learning really opens my eyes and the perspective that I have to my part in this system and to what the system is. The same process that we talk about as being sacred doesn't just happen here. It's like you could think of a pond, right? And a pond is all those same processes going on, but it's part of a larger ecosystem. And that ecosystem is part of its bioregion. And that bioregion is part of the biosphere, it's part of the entire planet. But it doesn't stop there. We move on to larger and larger ecosystems. The same idea of the cycling of matter, the flow of energy, and the spread of entropy doesn't stop on Earth. Earth is one piece of this big, huge, incredible puzzle. And we get to the point of resource cycling, not just in that little pond, but all the way onto galactic scales. And we're moving into the scale of superclusters, and we're looking at the way that the elements themselves are moving around and being transformed. And I find that just delightful and inspiring and amazing. And the more that I learn, the more amazed, the more joy and the deeper the mystery itself becomes. So learning about this stuff is a way to honor those mysteries. Now, this was not the direct question, but talking a little bit about the role of science in general. And science, I think that there's a lot of misconceptions around what science is. If we really break it down, we can talk about science as meaning three different things within the way that we use it when we talk about it in our society. First and foremost, and this is what science truly is, science is a process. It is a process of discovery and investigation. You heard about the scientific method? You probably had to learn a very dry version of that in school at some point, right? Starting with your observation and then moving on to your hypothesis and all of that. Okay, it rarely is ever that clean, cut, and dry in real life, but that is science. Now, science also, and this is the way that people talk about it more often, science can also refer to that whole body of knowledge that we have learned through that process. So when you take a course in biology, or you take a class in astrobiology or physics or any of those things, you are taking a class about and learning the body of knowledge that has been gathered through the scientific process. You've got to be really careful about that knowledge. That knowledge we can apply. But the thing about science is it is not set in stone. We are constantly learning new things and revising what we thought we knew. We are disproving, but never proving. We are only adding evidence to support ideas or to, to disprove. So really remember that. You cannot prove. You can only prove mathematical concepts, right? Proofs, mathematical proofs. You cannot prove in science. So that's number two. And then the third thing that could be science is the institution of science, as in the people who practice, the scientists themselves, the laboratories, that whole culture surrounding it. And when the media does its terribly sloppy reporting when it says, science says XYZ is bad for you, right? Science is a process. It doesn't say anything, right? That is a process that we use. Science as a body of knowledge can't say anything either. It's just a library. It's just a collection of knowledge. Scientists or institutions can take positions, but those are conclusions that were made by people or by institutions. That is not science itself, and that gets kind of co-opted a little bit. Okay, so it started to lag and cut out. So hopefully I'm coming back and filming the second part. So I wanted to come back and bring it back and talk about how then do I use science, or how can I apply science in my own life as a pagan? So when I go to make choices, specifically lifestyle choices that are informed by my values as a pagan, I make a point of going to the scientific literature and really pouring through that and trying to understand, what have we actually learned? Not just what is opinion, not just what would be really nice, what would be kind of easier to believe, what would I feel most revved up and empowered about, but what do we actually have the evidence for? Keeping in mind that the people writing the papers are themselves humans as well. So to look for what their biases might be in their conclusions, in the way that they present the data, but looking at what the evidence is that exists, so that I can make choices which align with my values and with our best understanding of actual reality, of how does it work right now, and our understanding of it. And again, knowing that science is something that the knowledge is going to continue to change and evolve. And as good scientists, it is our responsibility to step back and evaluate our work. So it's also, I am a scientist as well. So I'm an ecologist, an agroecologist. My field is agricultural ecology and range ecology. And I work as an independent ecologist directly with landowners, working in drawing down carbon and ecosystem restoration. And I'm also a science teacher. So my graduate work, my master's, is in space, and I teach this stuff. So it's a big part of my life right now, just thinking about this stuff all the time, from a professional level on both sides of that, but also on a passion level. And I am so delighted, absolutely delighted, to get to be around the time that I get to exist, that I am me. I'm this little piece of the earth that gets to get up and walk around and look at itself and wonder and laugh, that I get to be around in a time where we have tools to start answering some of these incredible questions that we have. It's just amazing. And it reminds me to be grateful. Right? We were talking about astrobiology earlier and thinking about how impossible it is, the idea that we would be the only ones here, that we're the only life that's figured this out. But at the same time, thinking about how astronomically unlikely it is that we're alone, we also still are incredibly lucky. And this is the moment we have. This is it. And we get to be part of this incredible cosmos. So I encourage you, if you can, tonight, go take a step out. You can, if you're in a dark area, you might be able to see the Milky Way. You could probably see Andromeda. Even if you're not in a dark area, you're probably going to be able to see Jupiter and Saturn. If you turn around and look the other way, the brightest spot in the sky right now is Mars. Bright red, very close. And just take a moment to breathe it in. Be part of this world, part of this earth, and know that Earth, we flow into another larger system that flows into another larger system. And you're not just part of Earth, you're part of the solar system, you're part of the Milky Way, you're part of, let's go all the way up to Laniakea and beyond. I think that's pretty amazing. So thank you all. Have a fantastic week and see you back same time next week.